Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean. So a while ago I did a video, my 10 favorite books. Today, here I am with 10 more favorite books. So let's get into it. Number 20 is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So I recently reviewed this book on my channel. It was a book where I was definitely slow to like it. Like at first I thought I would hate this book. And it took me quite a while to really get into it. I wouldn't say I really liked it until about 70% in. Anthony Burgess uses like a made-up language in this book. And at first I hated it. It was indecipherable. It was stupid. I was like, why would anyone write this? Why would anyone publish this? This is trash. But I kept reading, and gradually I began to learn more and more of the language. And by the end, I was able to understand most of it, which was cool because it was like reading a book almost in another language. And it was just a really interesting experience. It's like something I would never forget. I think it earns a spot here, not so much because it is my favorite book in the world or the best book in the world, but it was an experience reading it like I've had with few other books. Number 19 would be Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. This is another book I read and reviewed recently on my channel, and I had low expectations for this, but as the book went on, there were things in this book that were pretty hilarious, and watching my review for it, I was smiling and laughing a lot, which really told me how much I liked the book. Parts of it can be a little bit dry or wordy or boring even, because the book was written like over maybe 300 years ago. So it definitely has some age on it, but there were just things in this book that were really funny and quite surprising. Like just that someone from like 250 years ago or 300 years ago could make you laugh today. That just seems like so rare a feat, such a great accomplishment in a way, to have something be funny then and funny now. So I definitely think it's a book worth reading, and again, there were just parts that made me laugh that were hysterical. So Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift gets the 19 spot. Number 18. In forming this list, I realized I did not have any books by Clive Cussler on it. And Clive Cussler was my favorite author for a long while. His book Atlantis Found was the first book I ever read front to back in high school. And within a year, I read every Dirk Pitt Clive Cussler book. I think there were 14 at the time. I think Atlantis Found was 14. I'm not sure. I read every book after that within a year and loved them. Of those, the two I most remember liking were Inca Gold and Treasure. So I read the summaries on Wikipedia because I have not read these books in like 20 years, so I don't really remember them all too much. But the summary between those two books, Treasure and Inca Gold made the most sense. I mean, it like struck a chord for the best memory. So I'm gonna put Inca Gold here. I can't really say too much about it at this point, but Clive Cussler was a major influence for me, the Dirk Pitt books in particular, and of them I remember liking Inca Gold a lot. It was like the standout book to me, my favorite at the time after reading all of them. So Inca Gold gets the spot here. Number 17 goes to Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is another book I've reviewed previously on my channel. I don't really know too much what to say about it because to me it's like real evident what the book is about. As you read it, it's like very clear what's going on here, why you should read this book. In short, if you don't know, basically what the book is about is it is set on a farm from perspective of these animals. And so they decide that humans are basically ripping them off, so they want to have a revolution. And along the way, you basically see that things the animals do like represents either like fascism or communism. So there's like a group of animals that wants to control the people or the animals and have it be like collective ownership, like they want to be in charge, running everything. And then you have more individual animals who are more like, we don't want these people to run our lives. We want to just, be left to ourselves, kind of. Anyway, the book is definitely like political allegory, I think is the word. And to me, it just makes a lot of sense. And I really like this book. It was very meaningful. I would basically recommend to everyone on Earth, really, that you should read Animal Farm and watch the film V for Vendetta. If you do both of those and you cannot realize what's going on in the world, there's really no hope for you. But if you read Animal Farm, watch V for Vendetta, you'll see what's going on, what we are doing to ourselves, what government is doing. Anyway, I don't want to get too political. What I will say also is that George Orwell, I think, is most famous for 1984. Like, that's what I always thought was his magnum opus, his best life's work. It's what he may be most famous for. I thought 1984 was just pretty dry and wordy and boring, and I just didn't enjoy reading it. I did enjoy reading Animal Farm, however. It was a much more readable book, and the political message was just like really clear, really concise, really sharp, on the point, blatant, like... So anyway, I definitely like Animal Farm over 1984, and it earns the spot here. Number 16 is actually a book I mentioned in my 10 favorite books video because I was torn between putting it or another book on the list. The book I wound up putting on the list was Airframe. So here at 16, I put that other book here, and that is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. This was one of my favorite books. It was the first book I read by Michael Crichton, and it made me fall in love with his books. Unfortunately, I only really liked like 3 or 4 of his books, and then after that they just didn't really work for me so much. But these were the 2 books I thought were just his masterpieces, just superb. Airframe and Jurassic Park. I don't really think I need to say much about it because everyone knows Jurassic Park. What I will say for the book versus the movie is the book gives you a lot more information. When I read the book, to me, I read it like I am seeing in my head a director's cut of the film. So I know exactly how to picture Grant. I know exactly how to picture Malcolm. I know how to picture the park. I know how to picture everything. So what I do is I just basically swap out all of Steven Spielberg's stuff for Michael Crichton's. So I just picture it exactly like the movie, but like an extended edition. So I can just picture all the characters in the film saying the dialogue exactly as they would appear in the book. It's just really interesting to me. It's like reading, or it's like watching a director's cut of the film, or watching like a 4-hour version of the film. So I don't know, it's just really interesting to me, and I think there is definitely worth reading the book because I think you get more out of it, especially like talking about the dinosaurs, how they were made. Crichton goes a lot more into that. You may not like it because he's a very technical writer, but I enjoyed this book a lot and it made me feel really smart. I could really keep talking about it forever, but I don't want to do that. No one wants me to do that. So I'll just say, yes, the film is a masterpiece. It's a beautiful work of art. Great film. But I think the book is equally as good, if not better. So I strongly recommend the book. So you should read it. 15 is a book that for a time has really jumped around this list. And that book is The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. It's not a book where the writing was my favorite, the storytelling, the plot, the characters, the characterization, the settings, the theme. I'm not really sure. I can't say any part of it was really great or even good. I'm not even sure if I really liked this book. I may have even disliked it. it's just a book that perplexes me so much. But the thing about the book is I read the whole thing. Most of the time as I read it, I was hoping like, come on, make it all worthwhile. Have something happen that just makes reading this book all worthwhile. And it really didn't. The book was basically what it was. And so I'm just so perplexed about this book because it never gave me what I wanted, really. It never, like, had a eureka moment. I'm so glad I read this. Imagine it's almost like having a lover or something where maybe they're not the most beautiful person in the world, they're not the funniest, they're not the sweetest, whatever, but there's just something about that person, you just love them. That is kind of, I think, how I feel about this book. And also something else, Carson McCullers was a pretty interesting person, so I think you should go on Wikipedia and read about her life because it's pretty interesting. Also, there is a quote you can find on Wikipedia where it talks about Carson McCullers had an attraction to this other woman. And so Carson McCullers has this quote where she said, this other woman had a face that she knew would haunt her for the rest of her life. And I just love that quote. It's just such a beautiful, moving quote. Oh, and that actually completely reminded me. I recently got this book, The Ballad of the Sad Cafe by Carson McCullers. It's one of the books that she had at the bookstore. So I want to keep trying more of her books. Even if I don't really like this book, I think I may want to try others by her because I don't remember reading this title among like the list of her most prominent books. And it's a real short book too. But I think she's definitely a writer where I want to read more of her. Again, she's just a writer. I can't say I love her, but I'm in love with her writing, and I cannot say why. I cannot explain it in human words. It just is. So that's a really peculiar feeling for me because I'm not quite sure I've felt that way for any other writer or other books. So, read the Wikipedia page on Carson McCullers. Pretty interesting life she had, and I do recommend The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. It's just a book that really left a mark on me. Number 14 is a couple other books where I had to choose one between the other for the top 10 list. The one that I wound up putting on the top 10 list was The Sea Wolf by Jack London. I just really like that book because of the character of Wolf Larsen. The other book I would have chosen for the top 10 list, and it goes here at 14, is White Fang by Jack London. This is a collection of The Call of the Wild, which is his most famous book, which I didn't really like that much, and White Fang. White Fang is my undoubtable favorite, so I really liked it. White Fang is basically the story of this like dog-wolf hybrid, and I don't honestly remember too much of all that happens until really the end, because I was just like really nervous at the end, like, is this wolf gonna get killed at the end? Am I gonna cry? Or is it going to survive? Is the animal gonna live or not? I don't want to spoil it, but I will say that in spite of that, in spite of like all my worries, it's a book worth reading, and I really loved White Fang. So both the book itself and the character of White Fang, the wolf, I just loved it. So Jack London was an author I really liked for a long while. I've read actually most of his books. So of them, White Fang and The Sea Wolf are my two clear favorites. So it goes here, number 14, White Fang by Jack London. I'm sorry I can't really talk too much else about the details of the plot. I don't really remember. All I remember is I really liked it. So 14th spot, White Fang. Loved it. Number 13 is another book I reviewed recently on the channel, and that is Russell Banks' The Sweet Hereafter. So this is a book where, what do I want to say about it? The main thing about this book is the writing is just so beautiful. I just love the writing style. Russell Banks is an author I had never heard of before. I had never heard of this book, but it's off the top 1000 list, 1000 Books to Read Before You Die by James Moostich. So I read it not really expecting anything, and as I read, just even in the first chapter, I was like, okay, this is a masterpiece. This is beautiful. And it was that the whole way through. It just sustained it. It's just beautifully written. The storytelling is all really good. The pacing is all well done. The characters, the characterization. It's just a really good book, quite flawless. I did not see anything about it that I disliked. And if you watch my channel for a while, you know I can find things that I dislike. And when there's a book where it's like it's flawless, I love it. I love every part of it. You should know it's pretty good. So I really like this book. Basically, the plot of the book, I don't really want to give spoilers, but you kind of find out really early on that the book is basically about this bus driver is taking kids to school in the winter, in the snow, it's snowing, and there's going to be a crash. The bus is going to crash and kids are going to die. And the story is basically about the town recovering from this tragedy. And so you follow a few major characters. I think there's like 5, maybe 6 perspective characters in the book. And it's just a really beautifully written book. I know it could sound like a real emotional book. Like, oh, I don't want to read a book about some kids dying. It's really not that bad, though. So, like, I did not cry in this book, reading this book. It's just a beautiful story, though. It's beautifully written, so I strongly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books ever. It's one of the most beautiful, well-written books I've ever read. So Russell Banks really won me over with this book. So that gets the 13th spot, The Sweet Hereafter by Russell Banks. Loved it. Number 12 is actually a book I was amazed I did not have on this list earlier. And it's over here. I would get it out, but if I move this gremlin has such a tendency to like fall over and stuff. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to move these books at all. But it's this book over here, The 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear by Walter Moors. This is a book I read after reading The City of Dreaming Books, which is my all-time favorite book. I absolutely love that book. Best book ever. So, after reading that book, I tried 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear, which is the first book in Walter Moors's Zimonia series. And basically, the plot of this book is it's about this character, Bluebear, who is a bear, and he is in this country of, or continent of Zimonia, which is Walter Moors's fantastic land. That's like the setting of these books. And it's just such a funny story. You meet so many characters, so much lore in this book about this world. I just loved it. And really the reason I think I forget about this book so much, I don't forget about it, but I kind of underrate it, I think, is because I love the City of Dreaming Books so much. If it wasn't for City of Dreaming Books, this book, 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear, could legitimately be my all-time favorite book. Like, I enjoyed it that much. It was so great. It was so funny. It was so brilliant at times. I just loved it. But because of the City of Dreaming Books, I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear. That's a pretty good book. But it's still so good compared to everything else. So it really deserved to be on the top 10 list. But anyway, it goes here at 12. Hopefully I've said enough about it to recommend it. It's just a real funny book. I thought between it and City of Dreaming Books, Bluebear was a funnier book. I think I laughed out loud quite a bit more reading it. It's just really interesting. I loved it. I loved not every part of it. There was actually a span of 200 pages that I hated. But for the most part, all in all, I really loved the book. It was funny. And if it wasn't for City of Dreaming Books, it might be my favorite book ever. So I really recommend 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear. You should read it. You should also read City of Dreaming Books. You should read both of them. So yeah. I also did a video, 3 by Moors, where I reviewed the City of Dreaming Books, 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear, and Rumo. So if you want to go see that, go see that. 3 by Moors. I've also done reviews on this channel of A Wild Ride Through the Night, which is a single title book by Walter Moors. I really like that book. And I also did a review of The Alchemist's Apprentice by Walter Moors, which I did not really like so much. But you could also check out the review for that book as well. Okay, and number 11 would really not be 11. This would really probably be like my fourth favorite book of all time by now. It would jump into the top 10 for sure, like no doubt about it. If you've seen my channel at all, really, you probably know which book I'm going to mention because I talk about it in most every video I do now. And that book is, do you know it? Can you guess it? Do you know what it is? Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried. The first chapter of this book, it's basically a memoirs about his time in Vietnam, but it's also fictionalized. So Tim O'Brien has like fictional stuff in here and some true stuff, and he blurs the line between them so you don't know what's true and what's not. But it's such a beautiful book. The first chapter I thought was just perfection. The second chapter was also perfection, I think. A chapter or two later, when he gets, there's a chapter where he goes up to the Canadian border because he's thinking of crossing over because he got a draft notice. That chapter alone guaranteed this book a 5-star rating. It's just so beautiful, the whole book. I did kind of get to parts later in the book where I was kind of getting bored, like wondering what this has to do with anything. I don't really like this story, but it would all come together in the end. It did have a purpose. So really every part of this book, every word of this book was just flawless. It was beautiful. It was a work of art. From a pure writing standpoint, it might be my favorite written book of all time. I don't know, like City of Dreaming Books, it's my favorite, like, for various reasons, but like, I don't know, like emotionally or sentimentally, City of Dreaming Books means a lot to me. But in terms of like pure writing ability, pure storytelling, characterization, world building, I guess, meaning in terms of like a message, I guess, or I don't know, just I cannot say enough good things about this book. I just think it's a real masterpiece. It's a brilliant, flawless, beautiful book. So right away, Tim O'Brien just rocketed up my favorite authors list. I absolutely love this book. I've read another book of his since then, which was In the Lake of the Woods. I've also reviewed that on my channel, and I like that book as well. So Tim O'Brien has kind of become my favorite author. In fact, right now, I think I'm actually considering him as my favorite author. And it's largely because of this book. I just loved it. I cannot say enough good things about it. So The Things They Carried, I'm sorry I keep repeating this, but I loved it. So I'm not sure exactly where it would rank now. I think it would definitely be in the top 4. It might make it into the top 3, possibly top 2. Would it be better than the City of Dreaming Books, though? I don't know. I'd still say no. I still think City of Dreaming Books is the best thing ever written, but this isn't too far off. So after City of Dreaming Books, I'm not sure if I've ever read a book better than this one. In fact, I can pretty confidently say there's not. So I think this is my second favorite book of all time now. Anyway, I think that will about do it for this video. So that is 10 more favorite books. What do you guys think? Have you read any books off this list? What do you think? What is your favorite book or a couple of your favorite books? Let me know. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.